Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the True Life Podcast. I hope everybody's having a beautiful day. Hope the sun is shining. Hope the birds are singing. Hope the wind is at your back. Woo! I got a banger for you guys today. Let me just throw this out here like this. In an era of scripted sameness and corporate noise, one voice refuses to conform. Kyle Rosner is a media insurgent, a producer, a writer, a creative tactician who doesn't wait for permission, doesn't play it safe, and sure as hell doesn't follow the formula. From film to radio, TV to podcast, he's been behind the boards, behind the lens, and behind the words, crafting stories that hit hard and leave a mark. His content is sharp, funny, thought-provoking, always tailored, never tamed. He's the guy brands call when they need voice, not volume. The strategist who finds magic in the mess. The creator who thrives under pressure and still finds time to punch up the truth. If the mainstream is a current, Kyle swims upstream, armed with vision, grit, and knack for making something out of nothing. He's not just producing media, he's rewriting the rules. Kyle, thank you so much for being here today. Reality Sandwich, I'm so stoked to talk to you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for the kind words and intro there. Definitely blew my mind. Nice for somebody to sum up my activities and work like that.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to be here for lots of reasons. First off, shout out to Southern California, man. You guys had the big Warrior Side project down there.
Mhm.
Shout out to Oceanside, Carlsbad, Vista. I know Cat's down in Vista. There's so many cool people in that community down there that I think are really sort of bringing a large part of the psychedelic community to the world, man. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, super grateful to live in San Diego area. Definitely big, biotech pharma hub. Definitely attracts a lot of free thinkers, a lot of cool people working on awesome, cool projects, a lot of awesome food entrepreneurs, and obviously a lot of people into and embedded in the psychedelic community here as well.
Yeah, man. Let's jump into this reality sandwich, man. You got a really cool platform out there, and it's really starting to put out a lot of, voices and free thinkers. And like I love the fact that you're not afraid to push boundaries and put out some dissenting voices that have a lot to say, man. Tell me a little bit about reality sandwich.
Yeah, super grateful. Along with myself, it's not just me. I have a few
Right.
business partners and our wonderful editorial team. Reality Sandwich is actually a 20-year-old community founded about over 20 years ago on the East Coast of New York by Ken Jordan, Daniel Pinchbeck, and a few other of the original psychedelic thought leaders and people in the space. My team and I were lucky to become its current caretakers about 6 years ago. The site had definitely fallen by the wayside. The community was kind of scattering to the wind, so we were lucky enough to be able to acquire the community and rebuild it back up to where it is today. And we threw an awesome event 2021 called Meet out in Vegas. We had like Dr. Carl Hart there, Duncan Trussell, Shane Mouse, Jason Silva, a lot of awesome voices in the emerging biohacking, wellness, psychedelic community. Psychedelics I feel fall into this kind of wellness category, as I'm sure you've seen. And yeah, as a filmmaker myself, love storytelling. You could say psychedelics are part of my DNA. My dad tells me I was conceived on LSD, and
Yeah.
obviously grew up with him using cannabis and being around mushrooms and stuff. So, doing some psychedelic storytelling and just being a caretaker for the reality sandwich community is a true honor, and glad I get to carry the torch forward.
It's so awesome. There's a certain sort of awareness that emerges from sort of living a life around psychedelics. It seems to me, at least in my own experience, and so many people I've talked to, you really begin to pick up on like subtle cues. You get to kind of listen to the language of nature and understand relationships a little bit different. I see that coming through in the work you're doing, but maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Psychedelics are definitely boundary breaking. There's a lot of people need to heal from a lot of trauma. We're living in traumatic and toxic environments, no matter how hard we try to escape that. And I feel psychedelics just kind of alter your thinking a bit, your patterns, and you being able to navigate this kind of system and world we're living in. Lets you identify, the systems around you and how can I either break from that or kind of weave a better narrative for myself and my community, and kind of live in a positive light around this toxic or traumatic environment that I'm unfortunately a part of. Like anybody, my experience started, smoking cannabis as a teenager. That evolved into a few LSD and mushroom trips. Nothing ceremonial. My actual first ceremonial psychedelic experience was actually a few months ago with San Pedro Medicine. Was lucky to have an awesome facilitator down here in San Diego, and I felt like I got 10 years worth of therapy for sure out of that awesome ceremony. And really made me reflect that these psychedelics, they're not the answer. They're just a tool for you to take and use. The integration is important afterwards, and you got to continue to do the work. So here I am doing the work every day, and using these as a cool tool to just stay grounded, stay positive, and continue to story tell and uplift the community around me.
I love it, man. I think you're using the tools in an incredible way. And I'm curious, when I think about ceremony, I think about initiation on some level. And it's a big tent initiation. Maybe the first time you smoke cannabis or the first time you do mushrooms or LSD. That's sort of an initiation in some ways. But on some level, Kyle, like I've noticed this trend, and it's not just in psychedelics. It seems that the world of initiation has given way to the world of buy-in. And it kind of upsets me a little bit. It seems like, oh, I got 10 grand or I got 5 grand. I'll give it to you and then I'll be initiated. But that seems to be a far cry from the old ways of initiation, where the questions were, tell me why you should be here. Or tell me about suffering. Tell me about holding your child's dead body. Tell me about something that you've sat next to that called to you that you think is an initiation. I feel like there's a lack there. Like we've just traded the initiation for a handful of dollars. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that comes down to people are disconnected from community. We don't
Yes.
really know our neighbors these days. We're all living pretty isolated. Everybody's on their own mission. No one participates in local civics anymore, really gets to know their neighbors or their
Yeah.
community. So there's a lack, there's an emptiness. I feel, I've experienced this
Me
myself, and
too.
a lot of people were searching for a group to be a part of, for a mission bigger than ourselves. The religion has kind of lost that a little bit. There are still churchgoers, but I feel even their mission is a little skewed or not true to the community in some sense. And we've had to replace that, since there's no local community for me to participate in. I need to find it online or digitally, or it's 3,000 miles away. And we can't vet everybody, so the barrier to entry is unfortunately a dollar price. There could be some things on top of that, but I think, again, since there's a lack of community support, we need everybody to chip in their dollars to keep this community afloat and pool our resources together. So there are obviously some nefarious buy-ins, people who are going to take your money and not give you much, but there's always a cost to anything. And as long as the value and mission is aligned, that I don't see a problem with that necessarily. One of my business partners, this nugget of truth he always likes to quote is, no margin, no mission. So, we all need money to make the mission and community happen, whether that's $1, 10, or a million. We need resources to make it happen. And as much goodwill as you want to have, or good work that you're doing, it still takes a dollar support. We need to figure out a way to unlock those.
Yeah. It's messy and I get it. Who doesn't want to go out and change the world, especially after, making a connection or a relationship with psychedelics? You feel this calling and like you see this change in your life. And like, how can I make this contagious? How can I do that? I I guess for me, one of the sticking points is it's up to every individual. Like if you want to pay 10 grand, $1 million, fine, whatever you want to pay. I mean, that's your decision and you can do it. But I think we run into issues where we graduate people with a certificate that may or may not mean anything. And then all of a sudden you have a person that could have went and read all the books for $14.99 at Barnes and Noble, but instead they sat at the foot of someone who may or may not be on the front lines of the fight. And then you have this label of guide, and then all of a sudden, like just the monetization of it to me seems like it dulls the instrument. I believe when the instrument becomes an institution, it sort of loses its ability to cut. Is that too harsh?
Not harsh at all. That's unfortunately a symptom of the capitalistic system we live under. People want to, they have these psychedelic breakthroughs and experiences and want to share it with the world. But what kind of makes you a facilitator or a shaman or a guide, if you're not from these traditional native communities. We've got a lot of ego shamans out there. The Tuluminati, somebody recently mentioned. That's a good
Yeah.
organizational word. I feel so. Psychedelics, unfortunately, for some people, the ego ramps up instead of dissolving, and now they want to be a guru. We recently did a deep dive on this on Reality Sandwich. You could check out that article by our wonderful editor Holly Crawford. It was the low-hanging fruit for people to monetize psychedelic experiences or pass on their knowledge. It's a sticky area wanting to sell gray market ayahuasca vines or powders or some of these mushroom chocolate bars. But hey, I feel like I've learned from this indigenous community. I want to pass on this knowledge, and I'm going to become a psychedelic facilitator and give you this certificate. You're going to pay 10 grand, and it's a 6-month intensive course. And now we're officiating you as like a guide for you to go out and do this. We've noticed there's not a lot of follow through because, yeah, you may be teaching these people how to be a guide, but you didn't teach them any business sense. A lot of people are coming into the psychedelic community from working a 9 to 5 or a different sort of thing. They're not used to being entrepreneurs, and you've armed them with becoming a facilitator, but now they don't have the skills to be a solopreneur and kind of spin this into a real business for themselves. People have invested, people invested in these courses and this content. So there's something to that. Should be a ticket to entry, but I think it's a little excessive. We're charging multiple thousands of dollars, not even giving somebody the medicine and now kind of stamping them as a psychedelic facilitator.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. It's a great point. I don't know. I talked to Dr. Jessica Rochester, who's the Mahadrina of a Santo Daime church in Montreal. And when we talked about initiation, she's like, George, people want in, and I get it. They're spiritually hungry, but when they come to my door, like they wait outside for a few days. I don't even talk to them. Like there's this old school process of like, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're about. Like, how could I possibly know if I even want to teach you or if you're ready to be taught? It's interesting to think about that. We got Noni. Noni, thank you so much for chiming in over here. Kyle, she says to you, what would you say to people who aren't the biggest fans of psychedelics? Thank you, Noni.
Yeah, still a lot of stigmas to be broken. This is medicine. I think we're scratching the surface of people finally seeing the veterans want to get this help. There's been amazing breakthroughs for dealing with PTSD, trauma, depression. If you're not a fan, it's just about educating somebody, right? Somebody knows somebody who's a veteran or suffering from depression or PTSD, and here's a chance for them to get the help they need that aren't pharmaceutical medicines, that these aren't quote drugs anymore. You've kind of been brainwashed on that. So always take it low and slow with somebody who's pretty anti-psychedelics. Show them the information. Don't I'm not a fan of pushing ideology on people. So some people don't need psychedelic medicine, and that's okay too. But we don't want to stop people from getting access to the healing that they need. So education is always key. Storytelling, showing them cool sites like Reality Sandwich, Tricycle Day, Double Blind, all the cool storytellers out there. And again, the lowest hanging fruit to a lot of people who are probably anti-psychedelic or show the veterans and their stories and how it's really helping them deal with the trauma that they've seen. And nobody wants to say they don't want to help veterans. So good place to start there.
Yeah, awesome comment, Noni. Thank you for that. Yeah, stigmas are so real. I when I think about stigmas and I think about science a little bit. Like I sometimes, Kyle, I get upset with the system of science, especially in psychedelics. And one that's really been on my mind lately is this incredible amount of money that I think is wasted on like mechanism of action. Like we have people that have studied mechanism of action for like 30 years and spent almost $1 billion. And all we have is a safety protocol. Like what I feel like we're standing at the tree line and staring at the shadow of the fire when we can let's go feel its warmth. Let's try to cook something. Let's try to do this. Like we have this incredible tool, but people are so caught up in labs and let's just see how this thing works. But in my opinion, mechanism of action is sort of like trying to see your head through your eyes. Like you can't do it. It's like, you can't do it, man. Like, why don't we work on real things? We know it works. Why are we spending so much time in these labs studying things that really don't give us any sort of fruit?
again, just a symptom of living under the capitalistic and United States government structure. Where we have the FDA, we have big
Yeah.
billion-dollar
Yeah.
pharma companies who are invested in keeping the system how it is and wanting to run everything through them so they can profit off of these
Yeah.
plants and medicines. We don't necessarily need that system. It's peace of mind for some people, for the older generations, I'm
Sure.
sure, but like you advise, just kind of dive right into it. We don't necessarily need that, but if you need that peace of mind, it should be there as well for your doctor and these pharma companies to sign off on.
Yeah, it's really well said. I'm excited on some level to see all the people moving forward, and I think the veterans a huge part of it. Our friend Jack Gorslin's done some incredible work at getting out there and talking about base daters and just talking about all of sort of like the moving parts and what happens. And what do you see happening here on the legalization front?
I'm a fan of decriminalization, not
Okay.
legalization. Let's
Ooh.
just get people access and
Yeah.
not be criminalized for possessing these materials. As we saw in cannabis, legalization is not necessarily the best track. It had this bill in California, had good intentions, but as we see, a lot of companies have lost traction, lost lots of money. It's hard, $1 million before you even get started on just a
Yeah.
license. And legalization is a nice word to use, but I don't know if that's necessarily the right path. And again, you're going to get interested parties now writing bills from pharma, from politicians, from
Yep.
local law enforcement. There's everyone's got a monetary interest in bringing these things online. So we got to be careful, who's profiting and who we're really trying to help.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you guys at Reality Sandwich are doing a great job of bringing in people with just different kinds of voices. I know Caesar Marin, good friend of mine. He's got an incredible article up over there. I know you got. I just read something from Nina Izel, who I got to get more familiar with. But how are you resourcing all these people, man? What does the process look like at Reality Sandwich to go out and find these voices?
Honestly, we get a lot of amazing people approaching us. I'm super lucky. I don't have to, it's very validating when I'm out in a public setting and I mention I, run Reality Sandwich and people's eyes light up. They're like, oh my God, I've been reading that for 10 plus years. Reality Sandwich was, again, one of the original sites where you could even find info on consciousness,
Yeah.
spirituality, microdosing, psychedelics. So it's super validating to hear this from people, not just numbers on, I can see how many people open our emails or come to the site every month, but it's nice to put faces behind those numbers. We're super lucky to have a large contributor network. A lot of people, reach out to us over email and message us on the social media channels wanting to share their experience. We have an amazing YouTube series called Share Your Experience where people can, dive in deep on their personal interactions with psychedelic medicines. It's an awesome resource for people who may be nervous to try different substances. You can see now testimonials from a dozen plus people on their experience with DMT or psilocybin, and lets you get a taste of what you should anticipate. Again, even from the beginning, guys like Daniel Pinchbeck, we
Yeah,
had
huge.
a lot of cool guys wanting to write for Reality Sandwich and be on there. We've got an amazing lead editor, Holly Crawford. She's kind of our vibe check for a lot of the people who want to, write something on Reality Sandwich. We get a nice feel for them, make sure they're a appropriate voice, somebody respected in the community, and make sure they pass all of our check marks there before we want to platform them.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job, and shout out to everybody on the team out there. Thank you from me and the community out there. It's a cool resource, and we got some people chiming in over here, Kyle. They want to know what's the first story you ever told that made you realize the power of media to disrupt.
Wow, that would be, honestly, a pretty transformative experience for me. Was my first documentary I produced. You could find that on YouTube. It's called A Home for Recovery. We focused on a friend of mine and his battle with opioid addiction and setting him on the path towards recovery. The director's father struggled with alcoholism, and we followed that narrative as well. And I've always been a filmmaker. My background's in filmmaking, so storytelling, again, a huge part of my life. And wanting to platform amazing education, storytelling opportunities, and just spread the word about different causes and people's stories. So always been, since a little kid, loved film, loved watching movies, wanted to learn how to make them and what goes on behind the scenes. So storytelling is just so key to the human experience that we need kind of artists and the creatives out there making sure everyone's voice can be heard and, platforming unique voices.
Yeah, I love it. I'm curious, in today's world, we have so many tools, and it seems like the power of storytelling combined with mythology and psychedelics really allows, the opportunity to tell a new kind of story. Like, we've been kind of trapped in this two-dimensional world now, but you start looking at the different YouTube channels and some of these young creators like Dr. X or even Vlad or, you know,
Mhm.
people's new content out there. It's like this fusion of like real-time video with voices and music. It really seems like we're starting to hit on multi-sensory modalities, man. As a filmmaker, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm excited for the future of AI integration into that. I mean,
Yeah.
multi-sensory modalities. We're going to have people plugged into VR headsets with the seat vibrating, real 5D, viewing experiences. There are some people out there even trying to replicate psychedelic
Yeah.
experience just with the VR mask and having a vibrating, sensation going on in a chair. So super excited for more experiences like that. I definitely suffer from, let's call it, content overload these days. There's
Me
so
too.
much content out there. How do I know what to focus on? You really get people are really gonna have to niche down and kind of stay in a thin lane of their interests, or it's gonna be very overwhelming.
Is that what you do? Like, how do you deal with like the content over? Like, there's so much cool stuff out there. Like, how do you narrow it down?
I really just try to stay in my lane. I
Yeah.
focus on, at Reality Sandwich, we're definitely more eager to talk spirituality, consciousness, again, to have the resources for the psychedelic community. I'm not necessarily focused on up to date news reporting, let's call it, and covering the quote industry. So just knowing, what kind of stories you want to tell and staying in that lane. So I know to not have to pay attention to the constant stream of other info pouring in.
Yeah, it's
And
a
then
great
again, I really try to limit my screen time. I'm somebody who works from home, unfortunately, stuck in front of the computer most hours of the day. So definitely always try to take a break to reset, get outside in nature, and make sure I don't overwhelm myself, knowing when to take a break from the content and the screen.
What do you have for me, like I have a little bin over here where I keep like my couple little mushrooms stashed in there in case I need to like, reset or something like that. And for my program, you know, I I'll do like a big dose. I'll do like a maybe like 7 or 8 grams once a month, and then I follow that up with like just a bite here and there. But it's really helped, and I think that those big doses allow you to sort of really broaden your awareness, and then these smaller micro doses allow you to maintain that thread to process the information in these sort of alternative states. But what does your process and your relationship with psychedelics look like on a day, month, week, or year?
Yeah, I have not taken psilocybin in about 2 years now. Had a pretty, let's call it, bad experience from
Ooh,
from a product somebody gave me. It wasn't
bummer.
dosed correctly, so it was definitely more than I was anticipating, and soured my night a little bit. So I've not taken any psilocybin for 2 years now. The San Pedro experience I had a few months ago was very enlightening for me. That was pretty low dose, not very psychedelic. And again, I got like 10 years of therapy in that session and
Yeah.
followed up with the integration afterwards. Otherwise, I'm a pretty, that's my, I don't microdose. I'm not on the Stamets stack or daily regimen. I do take mushroom supplements every day,
Yeah.
lion's mane, turkey tail, cordyceps mix, and
Good call.
definitely a daily cannabis user as well. Cannabis gets left out of the psychedelic
Yes.
medicine conversation, but nice to partake in that plant medicine daily as well. I'd say that's my ritual is microdosing cannabis daily.
It's interesting you bring up San Pedro. I was talking to Jessica Tracy, who's an incredible Jungian coach and just an incredible human being. And she was telling me that she practiced this thing called medicine of the ghost, where she went on this incredible San Pedro journey and then did acupuncture at the height of the San Pedro journey. I was like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. You did acupuncture at the height of a psychedelic trip. Weren't you afraid? Weren't you scared? But it's an interesting, and I'm hearing more about San Pedro. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your San Pedro experience and what
Yeah,
it was
San
like.
Pedro was very subtle, heart-opening medicine.
Okay.
They call it the grandfather medicine, so you're tapping into the grandfather spirit there. I've been told recommend doing it during the day. We had an awesome giant bonfire going. You want the warmth
Yeah.
of the on. You want the warmth of the fire on you. And you're not, quote, like tripping. You're not getting visuals. You're not like tripping out. It's very heart opening. We were in a pretty decent sized community, so everybody was vibing off each other's energy, communicating. I think that'd be a really great experience if you took some San Pedro and did some acupuncture. There was a woman there who microdoses San Pedro every day,
Wow.
says it helped her get off her Adderall. And again, the effects I was feeling, I could really see that as an awesome replacement. So yeah, San Pedro is very activating, depending on the dose, and could definitely get you off some of those pharmaceutical meds. The acupuncture in San Pedro definitely sounds like a therapeutic experience. So I would highly recommend it to everybody, especially having a nice guide facilitator there who
Right.
knows what they're doing and can kind of walk you through, maybe what your intention is or what you're looking to gain out of the experience.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me to get to see all of these medicines that have been there for so long, sort of reintegrating their way into a world that kind of seems sick. We have all these diagnoses for mental illness, but in a way, it just seems like it's caging our spirit. Like some of these drugs that are just, they find
That's the
ways to
point.
make you
We're
complacent.
all, we're all stemming from the Roman system, which had to cage the spirit, so we're still suffering from the effects of that thousands of years later.
Yeah. Is it, when I look at this sort of psychedelic reemergence on some level, I feel like we're in the late 50s, getting ready to emerge into the 60s somehow. And I see these young creators like Ollie Jin Bush has got this incredible band and he's playing and he's a mycologist, but I don't know. In my opinion, I see us in the early stages of this sort of revolution where we're going to see an explosion in creativity. What are your thoughts on that? Is it similar? Does it echo, or what are your thoughts?
Beautifully put. I mean, again, you can say the reason we have these computers at home and these awesome devices are because these guys were tripping on
Yeah.
LSD, Silicon Valley, and creating all this stuff. So LSD, psilocybin, great for unlocking creativity. You're very much right. We're just on the cusp of now people breaking the stigma, wanting to have a psychedelic experience, and that's going to lead to an explosion of creative thought and new systems we can design as we see the old system crumbling around us.
I see it with Reality Sandwich too. Like there's so much talk, and it seems at this point right now, medicalization has sort of taken all the oxygen out of the space. But I see like what you guys are doing over there. You guys are putting out people like Nina Izell and Caesar Marin, and like you have all these people that are speaking beyond the cage of the sterile clinics, and they're talking about going out into the community. They're doing things. You got people like Kat Kerner going and talk about end of life with psychedelics. And do you see that happening? Like it's like, whoa, look at this creativity, but spark ready to blow up.
Yeah, beautifully put. Even in the festival scene, we're seeing
Yep.
a lot more safer access to psychedelic medicines. Just more voices. People are coming out of the woodwork now and being able to talk about their experiences. People who were afraid or worked in a more of a corporate setting, it's now cool to be microdosing or sending your people to a microdosing or consciousness retreat to try to unlock some things there. People are seeing and using psychedelics as an optimization tool,
Yep.
so that's where I feel the conversation is being steered. And with that, now that people, it's not going to rot your brain, it's actually going to make you better employee, better worker. I think, we'll be able to break the glass ceiling there and get everybody to buy in.
Yeah, there's some interesting talk about insurance companies beginning to accept some of these modalities as treatment. Can you imagine, like, if you had access to psychedelics on some level? Like, I got to think that it's going to help people thoroughly understand the relationships of where they are, their family, their workplace, who they are, and where they fit in. Man, I hear whispers that in insurance companies. I know Dr. Bronner has adopted it, but have you heard some of the same things happening?
Yeah, especially again, the low hanging fruit kind of to monetize yourself in the psychedelic space was ketamine, was a
Yep.
legal substance, gets slotted into these psychedelic conversations. So the ketamine clinics, I feel, were the first doctors and nurses bought into that, and they were able to get the insurers on board so people could have access to this. Again, that's a whole other conversation. We shouldn't even be living in a system with quote insurance, and people should have access to right medicine, but we won't go too deeply there.
Yeah, it's interesting too to think about all the institutions that are on the cusp of change and what can happen. I just finished my taxes and I was like, man, what are we doing here? Like, why don't we just have a flat tax, man? Like, it'd be so much
Right.
easier. And like, you
Why
you
it's a
can't help.
burden on me to fill out all this paperwork and figure out what I would need to pay you and all that.
Yeah. I've seen a really interesting burgeoning relationship between like the NFTs, the crypt, like blockchain and psychedelics. I see some of these artists. I'm doing this thing called the Psychedelic Science Art Challenge, and I've partnered with all these incredible artists that are using tools like Unreal Engine, and they're really bridging that landscape. But maybe you could speak to more of the ideas of sort of technology and psychedelics, sort of kind of walking hand in hand.
Yeah, especially with the rise of AI here, we're really
Yes.
going to see, the integration of technology, being able to transcribe your psychedelic
Yep.
experiences or just being able to create more freely and easily. And with crypto, that allows us to maybe even create a system outside of capitalism and fiat-backed currency. Now, like, hey, here's a way for our community to come together and do reciprocity and kind of be outside the system of the using US currency or something like that. A great organization event I just went to was with a crypto organization called Light DAO. So they're a conscious entrepreneurial group. They want you to, buy in with their crypto and be part of this conscious entrepreneurial community. Met a lot of really cool people there working on a lot of cool projects, and that's one way to utilize this Web3, this crypto, blockchain technology, is to really hone down and solidify your community and start building ways to operate outside of the system.
Yeah. We got one coming in here from Desiree. She says, relationships are the real currency. I think it's a great point. What do you think of, Kyle, when you hear Desiree
Yeah,
say
your
relationships are the real
network is
currency?
your net worth, as they say. Yeah,
I got it right.
relationships are definitely currency. Again, that ties back to community. What
Yep.
community are you in? Who backs you? Who represents you? Who are your friends? Since we're all cut off from community, we're all desperately searching to either build our own or become part of one that our values align with. And we can't. We've been in the United States definitely been focused on individuality and being able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and that's not the way the world has operated for the past 1,000 years. It takes a village to raise a child. That's true. More, I see my brother's definitely struggling. He's a bit isolated with his first kid, and it sucks not living near grandma 3,000 miles away. You need community support to raise your children, to build community. It takes a team. And I think that's something more and more people are going to realize and want to start building intentional communities around themselves where they can really work together and build a safe haven for themselves.
It's so well put. On, on some level, I think that that's been the ailment of so many of us. Like we've been told these lies about just go out and make it, go out and do it yourself. But, you know, the person, if you just think about it for a little bit, like you can't make it, you're born with it. And like the community has it. The person selling it never had it. The person that tells you about it is trying to get an illusion of it. The person the girl singing in the garage, she's got it. The artist, he has it. Like we're all born with it, but you got to be able to share it. And when you start talking about families and communities, I lived in Hawaii for a long period of time, and I really got reintroduced to the idea of intergenerational living and how incredible it is for your daughter to spend time with your grandma and your grandfather and be in the same house and really understand how much more of an advantage you have in life if you have this intergenerational contact. And it seems like in the West, we've forgotten that, and we've pull yourself up by the bootstraps, get out of your house by the time you're 17, buy a car, buy a house, get all this craziness,
Yeah,
man.
maybe that was feasible at one point, when
Yeah.
houses were $20,000, but now,
Right.
the intergenerational living is super key, and we've lost.
Yep.
I try to build that with my family for
Yeah.
sure. It's wealth building. It's like right
It is.
now you're not out paying a landlord $3,000 a month. You can save that, and when you're out working, grandma can watch the kids and take care of some chores around the house. You're not stressed coming back to a dirty place and all these chores you got to do now on top of the work you were just out and doing. It definitely sucks. I'm sure some people have a lot of toxic families and can't
Sure.
necessarily live with them. But I think if we're building healthier relationships and systems, it starts with having a nice, working together intergenerational family, kind of all on an aligned mission.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love the sort of resourcing and getting back to our roots and community, and whether it's psychedelics or breath work or just exercise or whatever people are doing to find a community, I'm here for it. Speaking of communities, we got this big event coming up in Denver, man. Psychedelic Science 2025, man. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this will be my first time attending. Wasn't able to make it a few years ago when they had it. Heard it was smash hit. 13,000 plus people there. So showing people are hungry for psychedelics and seeing what the community is all about. We're going to be doing some awesome activations with my colleague Jacob Tell from District 216 in Santa Barbara. Carly Dutch Green, an amazing psychedelic designer. We've all come together, and on the 17th and 18th of June, we're going to be having an awesome event. Some cool after parties, some cool activations outside of the conference itself. So it should be an amazing time. If you want to or be part of the psychedelic community, this is going to be the place to be for sure. Everyone I've talked to in the space sounds like they're going to have some sort of presence there, whether that's an actual booth on the show or just being in Denver, taking meetings, seeing who they could hang out with.
Yeah, it's my first time coming too, and like there's so many cool satellites coming up, like Psychedelic Playhouse. I know Lakshmi's got a theater going out there, and I think Doc Askins is going to speak over there. It seems like there's all these little satellites popping up. It's almost like a little Burning Man happening.
The mycelial network of Denver activating there. Yeah, it could. I've heard in the past years it definitely was overwhelming. So if you want to keep your peace, be super strategic where you want to show up, who you want to network and align with, and make it valuable for yourself.
Yeah, it seems like there's so much good that can come out of there, and there's one thing I love about it is like there's so many diverse voices. You have everybody from Kristen Cinema to some indigenous people talking, and like obviously different voices have different sorts of tones and they have different points of views, but like that's where the magic is, when these people can get together and you can have a real conversation about, I think this, I think that, here's why, here's this. It should be exciting.
Yeah, super excited. Definitely key to meet up with the whole community there. It's going to be a really great event. If you haven't gotten tickets yet, highly recommend it, and make your plans to make the pilgrimage to Denver.
Yeah, it should be a great time out there. So check it out. Are you guys doing anything in Reality Sandwich gearing up towards that? I know you got some cool voices over there, but do you have anything planned leading up to that?
Yeah, we're a small, tight-knit team. It's really just going to be me out there. So glad to be partnering with Jacob in the Psychedelic Playhouse in District 216. We'll be doing some cool interviews there and wanting people to share their psychedelic experience. Otherwise, just come up and say hi to me up. We walk in the trade show floor, meeting cool people, doing some cool interviews. We've got our event on the 17th and 18th. And just excited to get deep with the community.
Nice. I got some questions stacking up over here. Let me get to this. Yeah, this one comes to us from our buddy Clint. He says, with so many brands chasing clicks and gimmicks, how do you build voice instead of just noise?
Again, super great point. We've never really taken a sponsorship dollar at Reality Sandwich. We're super lucky. Our kind of agency work has kept a lot of the bills and lights on. So we, anybody who does want to participate to our community, we really try to vet. We recently launched the Reality Sandwich app, and something we have on there is our sourcing guide. So we were able to lab test and really vet a lot of the gray market, black market guys out there, and anybody who passed our vibe check, we have listed in our sourcing directory guide. So if you're looking for the best of the best, make sure to download the Reality Sandwich app. And like anything, look for people who are aligned in the community. Are they a fly-by-night company with just a one-page website letting you buy mushroom chocolate bars? Who is the face behind the people popping this up? Are they in your local community? Just always do your research. Again, shout out to this brand new Tropics. They lab test every one of their products and post that for everybody to see. They really take pride in being part of the community. They're usually at every Southern California based psychedelic or cannabis event, and they're true faces behind the brand. They're not some fly by night guys looking to make a quick buck.
What's the name of them again? New Tropics?
New Tropics, yeah, and NEAUTROPICS. If you're subscribed to our Reality Sandwich email list, you may have saw a shout out to them recently.
This is another avenue of exploration that is really exciting for me. And as someone who's been a fan of research chemicals for a long time, like there's
Mhm.
so many incredible nootropics out there. The whole family of paracetams and just the different race tams. I'm a fan of phenobut and obviously functional mushrooms, but they came up and then all of a sudden I think that the powers that be shut them down pretty quick. You used to be able to buy them pretty freely, but what are your thoughts on nootropics? Like what do you
Yeah,
source
big,
them? What do
big
you
shout out
use?
to Alexander Shulgin for discovering a lot of this stuff and doing the work for the
Yep.
community, free of charge.
Yep.
Again, another sound like some really great activating chemicals out there that are clean and don't do any damage. Obviously, there's people who want to stick to organic grown, psychedelic medicines like the ayahuasca and psilocybin. But I've been told there's this really great substance out there called Matocin. That's a DMT psilocybin derivative that I'm hearing is better than psilocybin.
Wow.
Doesn't make you as nauseous and still gives you a nice journey. Whatever you're looking for, whether that's a microdose or macro dose. And yeah, so a lot of exciting things coming out of the research chemical department. As long as as long as they're clean, not hurting anybody, no reason not to try, right?
Yeah. It's
And it all
interesting.
depends. What are you looking for your wellness stack? You're just looking to boost creativity. You're looking to feel more activated at work or in the gym. It's always do your research, try different things, and see what works for you.
It's well said. Thanks for putting it out there. It's interesting you bring up the word stack too. Like so many of us have like this stack of things that we use. And I think we're moving away from the really amphetamine based stacks towards a more creative, heart centered stack. I mean, you definitely need some energy in there, and maybe you can get that through, you know, um, some lion's mane or something like that. But it's interesting to see the relationship between these things. And for me, I like to use, I experimented quite a bit with psilocybin and MK677, which is like a growth hormone secralog. I think that there's real opportunity in the future for like growth hormone to be partnered with some of these psychedelics. And I think it's going to blow up neuroplasticity on some level. What are some other relationships and some other stacks that you find helpful?
Yeah, somebody, again, I've somebody gave me some product. They're microdosed MDMA and psilocybin gummies, and that was a really great
Whoa.
experience. I'm hearing 3-MMC. It's really great. There's a lot of business thought leaders out there using 3-MMC as part of masterminds that you can go to. I'm hearing that's really activating for the entrepreneurial business world. So 2CB, another great chemical out there. Again, that's very heart opening, very activating, really great to stack. I think as part of your morning activation and getting you enlightened for the day. Again, my stack just sticking with the adaptogenic mushrooms
Yeah,
daily, lion's mane, cordyceps, turkey tail. Um, yeah.
I love it. We talked earlier a little bit about how psychedelics are moving out of the medical container, but
Mhm.
I can see it being used, especially like at team events. If you're a trainer or something like that and you're working with a college basketball team, like there's no reason why you guys couldn't have a weekend vision quest to thoroughly understand what it means to be a team or have some sort of, integrated journey together on some level. And I got to think that just the power of visualization, and we'll just take sports as an example, I really think it could push you to the next level of what is possible. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely great for team building.
Yep.
Build a psychic energy connection there
Yeah.
between team members to get even deeper. Yeah, really great. Again, we're really using these substances for the wellness hacking and biohacking and being more intentional with what we want to do together better than taking everyone out to drink all weekend. Let's do something intentional and activating and still have a good time.
Yeah, I love it. I love the idea of the intention behind it and then the ability to integrate it afterwards and see real results and team and creativity and focusing and moving there. Here we go. We got who is this? This is coming from Neil from Temecula. He says, how do you balance being a rebel with being responsible, especially when the topics you cover are real, raw, and dangerous?
Yeah, a colleague, not to speak too soon on the situation, but a colleague recently got taken down by the police for being associated with a psychedelic event. So, somebody warned me, hey, be
Yeah.
careful, putting your name out there and attaching yourself. I'm always been a rebel. I'm not afraid of any consequences. I'm happy to wave the flag and be a martyr. So I'm not necessarily afraid. I'm pretty risk. I've got good risk management, and just not afraid to put my face and tell stories out there. Super lucky to have a supportive family and wife and community around me. So, God forbid anything does happen, I know I've got the safety net and support system to bring me back from the brink.
I love that. I think it underscores the idea of courage. And in some ways, that's the psychedelic journey, and maybe this ties back to the earliest part of our conversation where people want to have the experience, but maybe they're afraid to commit themselves to the mystery. You know what I mean? Like psychedelics demand that you have courage. Like you can
You have to let go.
microdose.
You
You
can't let
got
your
to,
ego keep you there.
yeah,
Embrace it.
yeah. And it's both it, I get it. Like it's scary. And for those out there that are in this arena, like you should be afraid. Like if you're going to take a large dose, like you should be a little bit afraid because you are not going to be in the same reality that you were 2 hours ago. And that's healthy, I think. But that's the call to courage. It's the call to action. It's the threshold guardian. Like you have to be ready. Like it takes courage to go super deep on that. You got to learn some things about yourself that maybe you've been suppressing for a little while. What's your thoughts on courage and having the power to do it?
Listen, everything you do in life is a risk, no matter how hard you think you prepared or anticipated every possible outcome. So it's just about taking that first step. And a little bit of fear is good. Make sure you're paying attention, you're on the ball, but you just gotta be brave and take that first leap.
Yeah, in some ways, I feel like, at least in my experience, psychedelics have been like a courage simulator. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is sometimes in the depth of a psychedelic journey, you're faced with thoughts about yourself, things you're shameful of, things that are guilty, and you can't suppress it. It just stays there. And the more you try to suppress it, like the louder it just hovers over you. But I think it's really it's like a simulation for life. Like it teaches you in a if you've set the set and setting right and you're comfortable, it will teach you how to face your fears. And once you've done that internally, you can begin to do it externally. You can take those chances. You can have that conversation. You can stand up for yourself against people that maybe don't really even think that much of you. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, great point. Again, the importance of having, true facilitators or guides as part of your
Yeah.
experience, help you work through those emotions, work through the visions, shame, trauma you're trying to go in with. And again, the importance of intention before you even take these medicines. It's one thing to have a good time at a festival versus, hey, I'm here to maybe dig up some things and heal and let's see what gets brought up.
Yeah.
So just always, again, these medicines are just tools. You got to do the work afterwards. So always be prepared for that integration period before and after.
Do people need guides? Like I don't know if like the average person really needs a guide. Maybe the first time, like you can have someone hold your hand, but I think that most people are selling themselves short. Like here it is. Do you have the courage to do it? Like do it. You don't need a guide. You don't need a coach. Like just do it. It's right. Just do it.
There's a plethora of information out there. If you're a real go-getter and
Yeah,
do it yourself person, there's no reason you should be afraid. All the information and stories are out there for you to prepare the best you can and take this medicine either on your own or with a group or so yeah, you're correct. Not everybody needs it. Most people do. Most people need their handheld. So
sure.
it's nice we have the shamans, the facilitators out there to help guide.
Yeah, there's a great quote. I think McKenna said it, or he quoted someone else, and I don't have the original person that said it. So forgive me, everybody, for not quoting the source. But I heard it first time through McKenna, and he was like, "That which you are seeking is seeking you." So if you find yourself thinking about psychedelics, or maybe you think about buying a boat, whatever it is that you're seeking, that thing is seeking you, and you should investigate it, and you should go down that path. And it's just amazing to think about how these alternate states of awareness can really unlock the doors of living a life worth living and investigating who we are. They're so fruitful.
Yeah, I truly believe. I'm a person who really believes everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Everything is divine timing. So when the timing is right, it's right for a reason. And things happen to you because they were meant to happen. So take that info and use it how you will.
Kyle, like this always happens. Like we're like blow through an hour, like in what feels like 7 minutes, and there's maybe it's because we're both so passionate about it. But I do have another question. I got like one or
Yeah, of
two more
course.
I'll try to
Yeah.
squeeze in here. Okay. On the topic of building a platform,
Okay.
what's the revolution you're inviting people into, and what kind of voices do you want standing beside you? This comes from Betsy in Oceanside. Thanks, Betsy.
Wow. Let's break that down. What voices do I want standing beside me? I want renegades. I want free thinkers. I want creatives. I want people who take controversial opinions. Nobody nefarious, but
Right.
I want a rainbow coalition of voices. Let's hear the full spectrum of opinions and come to a cool story that we can tell and guide people with. What was the first part of that question again? I'm sorry.
What's the revolution you're inviting people into?
I'm inviting people to educate themselves about consciousness, spirituality, psychedelics. We're living in a toxic system, and the more medicine you can take and stories you read on platforms like Reality Sandwich, it will unlock a new paradigm of thinking for you and how to interact with your local community and build the life and system that you want to be a part of. Again, just launched the Reality Sandwich app. We've got daily meditation guides in there. We've got our substance sourcing guide. We've got a lot of cool resources for people to get value out of.
Yeah, and you had mentioned too that you have the share your experience. It that kind of sounds to me like the old trip reports on Arrowhead. You know what I mean? Like those are so fun to
Yeah,
read.
exactly. That was definitely our intention a bit with that. We've gotten some amazing feedback. This is public on our YouTube channel. So you're thinking about trying DMT, right? Here are 12 voices of
Yeah.
people who experience a DMT trip, so you can get a taste of what the experience will be like. And now you're best prepared to do the journey yourself.
Yeah, it's the amount of resources out there right now are mind blowing to me, and I'm so thankful for the people that are out there making it happen. And for one thing I really admire is that the price to contribute, the bar is so low. Like you can go on Reality Sandwich, put in your report or your experience, and you have no idea who that's going to affect. It's like throwing that little pebble into a still, calm water and seeing the ripples radiate outwards. Like everybody at this stage of the game is a contributor. Everybody, especially right now where psychedelics are at, like you're on the ground floor, everybody. Get in here with the tents open, come on in and let's figure this thing out on some level. Thanks for building that platform that
It's
way.
still super early, and trust me, we're not making millions of dollars at Reality Sandwiches. There's a passion project that we're happy to be giving to the community and our fans.
I love that you brought that up because I see so much passion in so many people's, and like that is what it takes to have a movement sweep across the world in a fashion that's contagious and deliberate and powerful. It is. There's so much passion around it right now.
Yeah, that's really all we have. This is still a
Yeah.
super early industry. Unless you're coming from the VC world or farmer world, these projects are pretty bootstrapped. Teams are small, so you really got to have the undying passion if you want to make it in this quote psychedelic community.
Yeah. Who's this one coming? This one's coming from Nick. Nick says, "What's one message you'd broadcast to every young creator who's tired of algorithms and ready to shake the system?"
Keep creating. I had a project I was working on a few years ago. This 60-year-old guy just bought an RV, started traveling around the US, and now he's got 600,000 YouTube subscribers. He's making 30 grand a month producing YouTube videos. He invested in himself, going to the Mr. Beast YouTube school. Like, here's a retired guy who learned how to make YouTube videos himself, and it took a few years before he finally got traction, and now is making a living off of it. So my advice, I've been disheartened. I've seen projects fall apart, things nobody, made videos nobody really saw, but it's just keep making, keep producing, keep going, because the community will be there for you, and you will build an awesome following. You just have to keep going, keep doing the craft, never stop. No
I
matter
love that.
how disheartening it gets, no matter how much you're like, I'm not making any money, just keep doing it.
I love that. Just the act of creating something in your life has an incredible, like a profound effect on all your relationships. And when you lean into this creative spirit that all of us have, like you really find parts of yourself that were lying dormant or, seem to be inaccessible, or maybe were pushed out of you in this Prussian school model where you sat in front of an authoritarian figure and they told you this and you had to ask for a hall pass and ask for permission. Stop asking for permission and just do it. It's there for everybody.
The tools are there. A lot of great, free, awesome tools. No more excuses as to why you can't make. The only one holding yourself back is you. The tools are there for you to be a filmmaker, to be a creative, to build or do anything.
I love that. I love that. As we're landing the plane here, Kyle, let me throw it back to you, man. Where can people find you? What do you have coming up and what are you excited about?
Super excited. If you're in San Diego coming up on 4/20/Easter weekend, we're doing an awesome Van Jam camp out in San Diego. Going to be a lot of awesome vendors, a lot of great food, amazing roster of musicians. Going to be an epic 3-day weekend where we'll be all vibing, enjoying some good music, some good food, some good psychedelic medicine. Again, just would love for people to check out the Reality Sandwich app we just launched. We've got a slew of amazing articles and resources on realitysandwich.com. Follow us, across all the social media channels. Just search Reality Sandwich. My personal Instagram is Good Kyle Smokes. You can check me out there for all the cool things I post, and then my full name right here for everyone to see. Check me out on LinkedIn as well.
I love it. Kyle, thank you so much to you and the entire team at Reality Sandwich, to the psychedelic community, for everybody out there that knows that there's a better life waiting for you, man. I hope you embrace it. And I hope you check out Reality Sandwich. I hope you reach out to Kyle. Go check out the event on 4/20. Do yourself a huge favor. And whether you're listening to this today or tomorrow or a year from now, download the Reality Sandwich app. And Kyle, hang on briefly afterwards, but to everybody for hanging out today, everybody that contributed, I love you. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope you have a beautiful day. That's all we got. Aloha, everyone.
Aloha.